fallout for Kyiv, for the city, for the capital is intensifying. I want to bring in Congressman Brad Sherman of California and senior member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us this evening, this morning, as Ukrainians are waking up after a night, once again, of fighting as Russian forces are advancing on the capital city of Kyiv. Talk to me about the additional support the president is now asking for Ukraine from Secretary Blinken, $350 million, I believe, in immediate support to Ukraine's defenses. On top of that, we know we have 7,000 U.S. troops now stationed in Europe, of course, to help support NATO allies. Talk to me about your reaction so far.
I think it's important that we not have American soldiers on the ground or in the air shooting at Russians. These are two nuclear powers, and we can't let this thing lead to world conflagration. That being said, the Ukrainians have made it clear that they can pick up the weapons in Poland, and the $300 million figure and the much larger figures that are being talked about are important. But what's important is the particular items. The defense minister of Ukraine has created a message to members of Congress asking for exactly two things: shoulder-fired anti-tank missiles and shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles, the Stingers. We need to provide these in large quantities in Poland to the Ukraine in the next 12 hours. And it's good to talk about amounts of money, but these are the particular weapons they need. And those weapons would be good both for the conventional phase and for any asymmetrical guerrilla warfare that might follow.
I was just speaking to a former member of parliament, Congressman. I'm not sure if you actually heard my interview with her, and the desperation in her voice, it was palpable as she left the capital city with her family, afraid for her own life and the life of her family, of course. And she talked about the fact that the world cannot abandon Ukraine, that even though they are not members of NATO, that is not because of their doing, she believes, but because of decisions that were made outside of the country, and that they need as much help as possible because of the humanitarian crisis that is in their future. What do you make of that?
Well, I think they don't look upon this as needing humanitarian aid for refugees outside the country. They want to fight for and preserve their country. And to do that, they need the support that we can provide in sanctions, and they need the support that we can provide as far as weapons and ammunition. Keep in mind that the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, incurred roughly 100 casualties a month for roughly 100 months, and withdrew. And 2 years later, there was regime change in Moscow. Oh, if the Ukrainians are able to fight guerrilla or conventional in a way that sends body bags back to Russia, I think they will win this war. It will take them a while, perhaps. And I think Putin may rue the day that he made this mistake.
Okay, well, let's expand on that a little bit, Congressman, because that's the first time I'm hearing something like that. So what I'm hearing from you is that you feel as if that Putin will, in fact, retreat in Ukraine if he feels as if there are too many Russian soldiers being killed, despite the fact that that would seem like a loss to Vladimir Putin, something that he does not want nor likes, not something that necessarily plays to what we know about his history as a former KGB agent and his character as the leader of Moscow. How long do you think a war with Ukraine would go on for something like that to happen?
Well, Afghanistan was 9 or 10 years. But I think that there are space-saving ways that this can be arranged. Zelensky has been almost begging for negotiations for a ceasefire. And my guess is that Zelensky would make certain concessions, which Putin would exaggerate in importance and claim some sort of victory. If Russia walks away from this with something they have to claim as a victory, that's a tremendously better outcome than the conquest of all of the Ukraine by Russia.
Talk to me about the sanctions here. We know the president obviously issued new orders of these sanctions against the president himself, his foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, as well, making it very personal, of course, these sanctions hitting hard across Moscow, not only to the Russian people, but now the government. What do you make of these sanctions? Do you think they'll make any difference when it comes to Putin's movements inside Ukraine?
Not really. This is Putin undertook this expecting at least hundreds and hundreds of casualties. These sanctions are actually rather modest compared to what we did to Iran back in 2014. We have not used the SWIFT system to cut them out of international banking. And the reason we did it is because both the United States, but particularly Europe, want to keep buying Russian oil and natural gas, and want to keep paying for it, and of course need a banking system to pay for it. So I think the sanction against Putin personally is an attack, a public relations action. He'll take it as a slap in the face, but it's not near the kind of sanctions that would really hit the Russian economy.
So do you think they need to cut off the SWIFT system as well?
Well, we as a Western world have to realize that means there's less oil. That means oil prices are going up. We have to make it plain to the Saudis that they have to turn the spigot on during this time of international crisis. And we have to discuss this with the American and European population, because it's easy to talk about how we're going to sanction them. It's a little bit more difficult to say, what costs are we as a society willing to bear in order to help the Ukrainian people? This is, we can't do much for free.
Congressman Brad Sherman of California, we thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.